Taka is an ordinary high school student, heading to school on another ordinary day. He coincidentally takes the same bus as Aya, a beautiful student all the other girls fawn over. While they sit next to each other in class, he never has anything to do with her, except for today, when she handed him an eraser he dropped. Unfortunately, the interaction sparked anger and jealousy among her admirers, leading to a beating and a warning to stay away. While running an errand for the teacher later on, a figure with cat ears seemingly approaches him. A hand touches his shoulder, but he turns back to see a regular classmate. She takes the pile of papers he was carrying, confirming that it's day duty work, and runs to Aya, who is on duty with him. After classes, his friends invite him to hang out later, but he declines as expected. While taking the trash out, he notices a rabbit ear in the bin and pulls out a toy, with its chest forecasting falling school buildings. Just then, a huge shadow appears where he stands, and a building falls right on him, as predicted. When he opens his eyes, he finds himself carried by Aya, who's oddly wearing a witch's outfit and flying high up. The culprit sees the witch and tests her out by summoning night-like rabbits to attack. She defends with her broom and attacks with continuous flame spells, eventually burning the two to ash. While she's locked in battle, the mastermind tricks Taka, calling him to her while pretending to be a friend. With this, he finds himself surrounded by the rabbits and kneeling with his head sticking out, about to get cut off. As he convinces himself that he's dreaming, they all burst into flames, and he's saved by Aya. Understanding that he must be confused, she says it's her mission to protect him, as he's her princess. While doubting what he heard, he sees her singed hair and gets mad, questioning why she'd risk her God-given hair to protect him. A rabbit stands up and rushes at them. He tries to defend, but he's smacked away like a fly. As he falls unconscious in her arms, anger and regret take over. With calm rage, she incinerates them all, and the culprit retreats from the fire witch. He later wakes up in an unfamiliar place, which Aya identifies as her private room in the school. As he remembers the dreamlike incident, she says she'll explain it on the way home, as there's no reason to protect him secretly anymore. He realizes that the coincidental encounters they had must have been intentional after all. The next day, he rides the bus as usual, but everyone is shocked as the school's princess takes the seat beside him. The path to school is filled with deadly glares, with everyone questioning what their relationship is. Moreover, the people who beat him up before now have a bigger reason to do it again. Aya appears as to rescue him, even kneeling to face the boy who's fallen down. Saying she'll burn all that hurt him, the pair walks away. At lunch, the school princess is surrounded by her followers, all of whom are giving Taka death stares. Unable to hold it, the girls lash out, questioning why he's there, but she ignores them all and even feeds him personally. Disturbed by the dirty looks, he says it's wrong for him to be there, as there's usually a line for whoever will eat with her. As she insists that it's her choice who to eat with, he raises his voice, saying it's also his choice to leave. With this, he storms off, and she burns her fan club's lunches in anger. While walking away, he arrives at the courtyard where the fight happened, now miraculously returned to normal. Suddenly, the cat girl from yesterday appears, saying it was all illusion magic anyway. Walking close, she identifies herself as Tanpo, of the Tower Witches. As wings surround him, Aya suddenly appears with a burst of flames, driving the stranger away. She summons dozens more rabbit knights, attacking with her entire army. They all charge at the pair, and things go dark after an explosion. When he opens his eyes, he sees blood dripping down, from blades that are inches away from his face. Moreover, he's shocked to find Aya, blocking all the blades with her own body, still asking if he's okay. She's confused by his anger and tears, but all he can think of is how she was endangered because of him, refusing to follow her instructions. As he promises to listen from now on, she confirms that he'll stop running away and assures him that she's fine since she's made of fire. The fire witch tells him to close his eyes, and the army of robot rabbits burst into flames, sending Tampo crashing to the wall as they explode. She's struck with fear as Aya approaches her in fury, incinerating all those around her. With the intruding witch handled, Taka opened his eyes and saw the princess back to normal. The next day, the teacher announces the arrival of transfer students, and 5 bizarre ladies walk in, calling themselves the KMM gang. Taka is a normal high schooler who was suddenly attacked by a girl with animal ears. She called herself a tower witch and transferred into his class with her 4 companions. Aya, the most famous person in school, who's also a witch, is apparently her guardian. His life has been confusing lately, and he's the only one who doesn't know why he's being attacked in the first place. For some reason, Aya didn't accompany him to school that day. However, he quickly realized why when he entered the classroom. Inside, the new witches are bound to a stake and crying as the room burns with the fire witch's magic. His guardian welcomes him nonchalantly, saying she used a spell to lead him there. Recalling how he called them trouble, she started a witch hunt to ease his worries. Unfortunately, one of the 5 got away, so she decided to torture the other 4 to draw her out. Horrified, he asks her to stop the flames and remove the ball from Tampo's mouth. Freed, the cat girl immediately spews insults, incredulous at what they were put through. Aya asks for permission to burn the noisy girl, but Taka instead, he asks her why she attacked him in the first place. Hearing his ignorance, she says it's only natural, as the fire witch is a workshop witch, who believes that hiding him is the right choice. She then says that they want her body, particularly the white stuff inside him. The misleading words have the expected effect, and blood rushes to his face. As they let their guard down, black liquid suddenly dropped and pooled on the floor, and May finally appeared with a surprise attack. She successfully captures the boy and frees her companions. However, her celebration doesn't last long, as Aya bursts through from the upper floor, already done with the others. Marching forward calmly, she ignores the enemy's threats, assuring Taka that she'll keep him safe. May remarks that she seems attached to the boy and orders the beast on her shoulder to bite his neck. Seeing this, she separates them with an explosion, and he sees the beast's bite marks on the fire witch's neck instead. Confused, she escapes with her companions, before getting hit with the final blow. Taka wakes up in Aya's private room again, and sees her oddly wearing a scarf. She says she wanted him to live life normally, but as things are, he'll get attacked again. To return to normal, they'll have to defeat the mastermind, who stole his peace. As she goes on, he regrets his weakness, knowing that the scarf is hiding an injury she took for him. He then asks to know everything and be taught magic, as he's unwilling to keep endangering people. At a cafe, 4 odd personalities meet. A woman named Kiana asks Chrono why she wants to meet. She says it's a workshop custom for a visiting witch to greet the ruler of an area. That said, her position as a tower witch makes them enemies. Recalling a fight that happened over the boy, she says war will be inevitable once he's revealed to the world. While working on a sculpture, Taka's sister says he has a call. Upon Aya's instruction, he heads out to meet her in the city, and she begins to talk about witches, remembering how they called her a workshop witch. Their people are divided into 2 groups. Those from her group erect workshops around the world, monitoring human settlements, to make sure that it's safe from evil magic. On the other hand, tower witches have selfish desires, and constantly form schemes to throw the world into chaos. Even the deaths of innocents won't faze them, and it'd be disastrous if he fell into their hands. They enter the restaurant from before, where Aya is treated like a regular. He gets a ridiculous dessert from the strange menu, and an employee runs over at the news of the princess's presence. She trips and falls to their table, somehow causing the dessert to freeze. Unfazed, the woman gushes over the young witch, powering through her threatening glare, and sharing that a Chrono is in town. Moreover, the Star and Cherry Blossom teams have also come, and the presence of tower witches has spiked. Despite sharing information, the frightening glare reminds her of a painful memory. Afraid, she takes her leave. While shopping at the mall later, he sees a young lady helping a crying child. To his surprise, she takes a wanted poster of him out and smacks the kid away. She pins the young man down and reveals her identity as a tower witch. As Aya arrives, 2 others appear and transform to attack them. However, they're immediately blown away by the fire witch, while Taka runs to shield the little girl from the battle. She points a finger gun at the enemies, and the entire floor explodes as she goes bang. The 3 girls retreat, warning that they'll be targeted every second. On the way home, he apologizes for getting caught, prompting her to accept him as her apprentice. He then wonders why she hasn't sealed or hidden her if it'd be so bad for him to get caught. She tells him to stop worrying about such things and think about his subjects instead, as it's the world she's trying to protect after all. They arrive at the school, which she identifies as the district workshop. In the chairperson's office is Kiana, who scolds Aya for wrecking the shopping mall's floor, just as she did with the classroom the other day. She places her attention on Taka, saying that her daughter has shared how he's asked to be her apprentice. According to workshop customs, new apprentices must first be introduced to the new master's teacher. A new day comes, and the quintet appears to challenge them again. Aya tells her new apprentice to watch and learn. However, there's not much to see, as a simple wave of her broom sends the group flying. At school, the anger from her fan club doesn't stop. He's surprised to see her empty locker, expecting it to be filled with love letters. On the other hand, his overflows with death threats. Focusing on his lessons, she asks if he watched the fight earlier and puts a pile of school textbooks on his table, saying they're part of his training. During gym, they team up for tennis, saying it's still part of his training. That said, Taka is leagues below her, so his master comes close to teach him the form and movement. From the beginning of the day to the end, he's surrounded by death stares. At the bus stop, he's surprised to find that they're headed home, expecting magic training to start after classes. She says there's no need to rush, as he looks too tired anyway. They find themselves alone on the bus, and he shares how surprised he was to see that the school is the workshop. As she says that it's actually a prestigious witch school, she sees the destination sign move and immediately looks back to find Chrono with her crocodile companion. Making a flashy entrance, she envelops the entire bus in magic, identifying the two and introducing herself. Aya tries to move first, but the enemy freezes her moment with the click of an item. She blasts the fire witch's body, but not a single scratch appears. Seeing her attacked, Taka puts himself between them, so she explains that the girl will never die, no matter what's done to her. On the other hand, she drives a knife into his gut and smoothly pulls it out. However, the wounds only last for a moment, and he notices that Aya is on the floor, bleeding at the spot where he was stabbed. It's a complicated damage transfer spell that was formed when she pledged to serve him in return for invincibility. To save her, Chrono says he has to pour his white stuff into her, and he can do so by swallowing a pill, which would unleash his real power. The fire witch intervenes in time and tells him to close his eyes as she's about to turn into something unbecoming. Green marks spread throughout her body, and emerald flames burst forth. The enemy is delighted to confirm her suspicions, but she's pinned down by Aya, who's brimming with power. She takes her leave, saying they'll meet again on Walpurgis night. He wakes up at the bus stop and sees his guardian unconscious. Brought to the infirmary, the nurse says it's mild anemia. While staying by her side, he finds candy in his pocket and remembers Chrono's words. The next day, forcing him to wear witch robes, she blatantly takes photos, after announcing their first official lesson. That said, the outfit does serve a purpose. Told to jump, he surprises himself as he nearly reaches the ceiling. As he doesn't seem to understand, she tells him to pick him up, and he does so without any trouble. She concludes that the robe makes the wearer lighter, and is also where brooms are magically stored. He's given instructions on how to do it, but fails after many attempts. Just then, students begin to pour in, as their reserved time runs out. Fortunately, the robes are also enchanted, to prevent them from being seen. The biggest priority is to ensure that normal citizens don't find out about them. Walking away, the people clear a path, another effect of the robe. She asks if he's afraid of heights, not really caring much if he is. She suddenly pulls him into her arms and zooms around the school. It doesn't stop there, as she flies around the city, saying it'll be flight practice until he can summon his own broom. Workshop witches patrol the town like that every day, and there are always 5 witches in high school who watch over the town. After the tiring day, he falls asleep on her shoulder, and later, wakes up flying again. She empathizes, guessing that the exhausting week must have finally caught up to him. He suddenly stops her, pointing to their classmate, who's being mugged in the street. Taka wants to help, but she rejects the idea, insisting that it's a job for the police. Moreover, they're forbidden from using magic on normal people. Unwilling to let it go, he summons his broom for the first time and jumps off Aya's. Asking her to teach him as he's plummeting to the ground, she tells him to concentrate on making the broom his loyal servant, simultaneously readying to catch him. He stops inches from the concrete and blasts through the streets, ramming into the thugs. However, he's the only one knocked unconscious, and they take an interest in the rude interruption. Fortunately, his master comes to save him, toasting them in flames. She says they were tower witches who laid a trap, justifying her use of magic. That said, her reasoning to identify them as tower witches is more than faulty. The next day at school, the girl who was being mugged tells Taka's sister about the incident. a creature named Medusa, is tightly locked up, bound, and even watched by special guards around the clock. According to the warden, the world will come to an end if she ever gets out. As the guards question if all that is really necessary, one steps back as he sees the sleeping creature smile. Just then, her enclosure cracks. At the cafe, the KMM gang convenes to talk about Aya, still dumbfounded by how perfect she is. Kazarin, who's often quiet, suddenly speaks up and suggests they stop fighting the fire witch. Misunderstood, she clarifies that she wants to attack the boy while he's alone. They all agree, but realize that the two are always together, which is a major hole in their plan. Chrono joins their conversation. Taka wakes up to the sound of his alarm, his body feeling heavier than usual. Walking around the house, he sees breakfast prepared by his mother, and his little sister Kasumi fixes his bedhead. She then asks about the person who called him last time, and follows through with what seems to be an interrogation. She's asked why he rushed out after ending the conversation, and he barely explains that he had school necessities to buy. To his surprise, she menacingly asks if the call was from the school princess, adding that the rumors about them have been causing trouble for her as well. He blurts out various excuses, but she threatens him with a high-power blower, demanding to know their relationship. Adding on, she says she followed him on the day they went shopping, unable to believe that he and the princess suddenly began dating. She stops the interrogation for now, not wanting to be late for school. As they walk together, he worries about her finding out about witches, and even more so because his rumors are causing her to be bullied. As his thoughts are too muddled, he belatedly realizes that he's about to miss the bus and runs to catch it. He trips and sees Tampo staring down. Meanwhile, Aya was ambushed by the rest of the group, who were informed that she has to stay close to the boy to maintain her power. Planning around Chrono's information, they decided to separate the two and take the fire witch away from her source of power. That said, the newcomer won't fight with them, as she used up her power, and their teacher, Medusa, would be furious if she found out that they worked together. As Tampo walks away, her rabbits suddenly get blown away, and an enormous stuffed toy enters the battlefield. To their shock, Kasumi stands atop, wearing witch's robes and controlling the beast confidently. Unwilling to back down in a battle of size, the cat girl summons another rabbit, bigger than the teddy bear. The two enormous animals clash, brawling with the streets as their arena. Meanwhile, the start team witches try to enter a cafe, annoyed that it won't allow their llama in. They freeze as their surroundings rumble, from the intense fight happening behind them. Despite using various sly tricks, the rabbit falls as the bear uses a perfect counter, socking it right in the face. Nearby buildings crumble and fall. Just then, another fighter enters, pushing the workshop member back. Amused, Kasumi reaffirms her strength and enlarges her bear so much that it towers over the entire city. Her mission is to protect her brother, as well as the town he lives in. As she says this, she orders the colossal beast to stomp down, causing the entire block to explode, along with the buildings. The tower witches retreat as usual, and she finally descends to her brother, who's obviously surprised that she's a witch. As she explains how she's in charge of protecting him, when the princess isn't around, he frantically worries about his master. However, Aya is simply sitting on the bear's arm, completely unharmed. His intense relief over her safety annoys his sister, who then picks a bone with the fire witch, reminding her of their assignments of when to protect Taka. Taking him out to shop on the weekends impedes her responsibility. Hearing this, he confirms that his sister's interrogation in the morning was simply to make his life tougher. Moreover, the people who bullied her, on the other hand, suffered fates he wouldn't want to hear of. Moving on, Kasumi relays a message from the president about the tower witches that have gathered, but Aya ignores her. Instead, she holds Taka's face, suddenly deciding that she'll guard him around the clock, and tells him to move in with her from that moment forward. As the siblings are stunned, the star team is in tatters, barely escaping the building's collapse. They encounter the crocodile companion and challenge him to a fight. Meanwhile, Chronos stares at the rest of the KMM gang, tied up by the overpowered fire witch. The crocodile appears, reporting that he's captured all the tower witches in town, just like she ordered. In the chairman's office, Kiana receives a call. She's told that Medusa has escaped, and she confirms that her underlings have been messing with the students. The chairwoman thought that the beast was simply strong enough to give out orders from prison, but it's much worse than she expected. The rest of the witches continue their day, unaware of what's to come. To the siblings' shock, their mother bows down to Aya in surrender, asking her to take care of her son. Quelling their incredulous protest, she tells them to quiet down for now, as she has something important to say. She gives a few disclaimers about what she's going to say, then unexpectedly reveals that Taka is already engaged to Aya. It started a long time ago, when she was still in school. Due to a string of accidents, she met Kiana, whom she got close to, so much that they promised to marry each other. However, laws wouldn't allow it, and they ended up marrying men eventually. As such, they decided to have their children get married instead, and she's been waiting for the day when he'd bring Aya into their home. That said, she promises to respect their wishes, but it won't seem to be a problem, as they're already asking to live together. As he's unable to reveal the world of witches, Kasumi steps up, vehemently rejecting the idea. Her mother speaks frankly, telling her to stop being inappropriately clingy, and holds the girl down, telling them to leave while she can't move. On their way, Aya checks if he's okay with the arrangement, so he expresses how comfortable he is when they're together. It feels as though they've spent years together, but no memories come to mind. It's the same for her, and she's certain it was done intentionally. The only difference between them is that she remembers her duty to protect him with her life. They're picked up by a limousine, where a few questionable items are scattered. He's reminded that she's rich, but falls absolutely stunned as they arrive at her 41-story mansion, filled with maids and butlers. The clear elevator takes them to the top floor, but they find Medusa lying in wait, surrounded by petrified maids. Walking into the room, Aya calmly tells him to descend to the 12th floor. The daughter of Gorgon asks for her final words, but the fire witch immediately attacks with full power. Taka questions her decision, which would ultimately leave her vulnerable. With no time to hesitate, he dons his robes to fight, but the elevator bursts open, and he sees the Aya on the ground. She tells him to take his broom and escape, reminding him that he was never taught combat magic. Just then, a little fox girl blows on a flute, and the fire witch turns to stone. Driven into a corner, he spots the pill Chrono gave, saying it'd unleash his full power. Despite knowing that it might be a trap, he swallows the pill, determined to take control of his strength. The White Princess, Evermillion, descends, saying she'll grant his wish. Medusa attacks, having waited for this moment, but the newcomer completely overpowers her. With a slight wave of her hand, Kiana ends her long day and looks at her beautiful mansion from her office, wanting to be calmed down. Unfortunately, it blows up in front of her, along with the mountain it stood on. The land slides down, ravaging the school grounds as well, and the chairperson furiously calls for all witches, believing that it's Medusa's doing. Standing on the bare columns of the 41-floor mansion, Evermillion delightfully looks at her work and says they should act fast if they want Aya to return to normal. It'd be an easy task for her, but she wants something in return. The White Princess asks for his eyes, and he agrees to surrender them without missing a beat. Surprised and satisfied by his quick response, she says he passes and tells him the way to free his fiancé. He's in disbelief, having been told to awaken the sleeping witch with a kiss. As he protests and argues, she explains that he's the reason she was petrified. Medusa uses a powerful divine curse, allowing her eyes and hands to petrify one, along with their thoughts. However, her hands and eyes are bound, so she can only use a fraction of her true powers. She's so weak that Aya shouldn't have lost to the witch if he had just believed in her words. As he's told to express his feelings, Medusa wakes up and prepares to attack once more. Unfortunately, Evermillion's time is up, but they'll likely see each other again soon, with the first seal finally broken. Apologizing, he kisses his petrified fiancée and welcomes her back. For some reason, the KMM gang attacks under Medusa's orders, but they're swatted away. The two powerful beings clash, but with Taka by the fire witch's side, it's barely a battle to begin with. She assures him that they've won, and he falls unconscious, later waking up in the nurse's office. He immediately checks on Aya's condition, relieved that she's safe. He wonders if it was all a dream, but he's stunned as she draws the curtains, revealing Medusa, bright and cheerful, on the other side. Promising to explain later, she returns the favor by kissing his cheek and telling him to never give his eyes up for her again. Meanwhile, in his home, his mother is crying over her son moving out. Kasumi answers the phone and is told that everyone is being summoned. As they see all the witches from the town gather, Taka gets an idea. The couple returns to his home and tells his mother that they've decided to live there instead. Their home is nowhere near a mansion, but she graciously accepts. Having wasted the entire night looking for Medusa, Kasumi returns home, expecting her brother to be back as their mansion blew up. To her shock, she enters his room and sees Aya on top of him. Incredulous, she complains over breakfast, even blatantly calling her mother out for letting it happen. Stunned, she falls to the floor, having completely lost the will to live. With the siblings realizing what she's done, Kasumi begrudgingly apologizes, while Taka tells her job that she won't be able to work that day. Meanwhile, at school, the student council president, Kaichu, scolds the fan club for allowing their princess to be stolen. Hozuki reasons that they can't do anything, as Aya herself has forbidden them. Unwilling to listen to their excuses, the president's rage reaches the vice, Tuku, and their advisor Mikage, whom she scolds regardless of being a teacher. Giving in, he later approaches Taka, calling him to the science lab, where he says that the young man has been causing problems. He transferred in his second year of high school, so he wouldn't know who the princess was. She's addressed as such, because students and faculty took a vote to identify the most outstanding student who will serve as the face of the school. That said, things would take a terrible turn if the elected student was embroiled in rumors, something he's causing to happen. As such, she doesn't belong to him, but to the school. Unfortunately, the princess's authority is second only to the chairperson, who, as it stands, is her mother. With this, he's put in a tight spot, as the student council threatens to fire him, else they separate. Hearing this, Aya says they simply have to expedite their plan and stop the complaints. With the discussion over, Mikage takes the mixture he was making, and the witch realizes what's happening too late. She disappears, and the two men find themselves in a fantasy world. Assuring him that Aya is safe, he takes a sphere out, identical to the pill Taka consumed. Within his body are 5 seals, meant to seal the White Princess in. With one of them broken, he'll likely have the chairwoman as his enemy soon. She's an exceptionally powerful witch, and the only reason he's been living freely. However, it was under the condition that his 5 seals remain functional. The first is already broken, and the others will soon follow. Kiana is the only one capable of stopping it, by sealing him entirely, but she's too preoccupied with Medusa to notice. He tells him to hide it as long as possible, along with them sheltering the snake witch. Kasumi somehow listens from the shadows, and Aya suddenly breaks into their world, impaling the professor. His body is replaced with a dummy, but she prioritizes Taka's safety. With that settled, the two head to the broadcast room and call everyone to the gym. Kaichu informs Kiana, and the two storm off as everyone gathers in the gym. There, she asserts her authority as the princess and fires the current council president, replacing her with Taka, who's shaking from the sudden appointment. She's driven out all opposition, and her mother is simply proud of her initiative. In the council's room, they explain the reassignments, adding Aya as the vice president and Tuku as the vice president. It's met with disbelief and questions, so the princess shows the two a script filled with tyrannical words. Not wanting to use such methods, Taka addresses them himself, acknowledging the abrupt situation and asking them to suspend their judgment for now and give him a chance. Settling things peacefully, they take their leave, and he lectures Aya for being too authoritarian, especially since she's supposed to be a role model. While they're having a mature conversation, Kasumi watches from afar, indignant at the turn of events. While distracted and shopping for plushies, Taka is kidnapped by her sister, and the fire witch is injected with powerful tranquilizers, strong enough to keep her asleep for days. Flying on a makeshift plane, she takes out a map, saying they'll skip town and live a new life together. Sharing that she heard everything Mikage said, Kasumi insists that neither the chairman nor her daughter will be safe to be with. Given workshop customs, running to a different city is the only way to keep him safe. That said, he reminds her of the seals being broken, and that he'll be dangerous no matter where he goes. As she foolishly insists on overcoming it, with sister power, an enormous dragon flies above them, with Aya glaring from its head. Not believing Taka's warning that she's seriously mad, the girl is shocked to have beams fired at her, but refuses to surrender nonetheless. While trying to escape, they crash into a building and plummet to the ground. Fortunately, Aya saves them both in time, even using her own body to cushion their crash into a workshop, the witches' only spot where they landed, and quickly blame it on the tower witches. As the city burns from the dragon blasts, the two siblings are brought back to their home. As Taka wakes up, He's assured that his sister is safe and asleep. Recalling the ridiculous things that Kasumi did for her brother, Aya suddenly proposes that she be his sister as well. Unwilling to give in, she forces him to address her as such, repeatedly until the sun rises the next day. She eventually falls asleep, and he sees the toys he bought at the store, which he wanted to use to make the two girls closer. Komachi has something serious to discuss with her children. She reveals that after she got married, she had an affair and had a baby. The two siblings are shocked by this. The mother adds that recently she has been reunited with her long-lost child and introduces her to them. The room door opens and reveals Aya, which surprisingly thrills Kasumi. However, Taka is horrified and wakes up from his bad dream. After changing into his uniform, he heads to the kitchen and is surprised to see Aya in an apron and cooking. Still reeling from his nightmare, he wonders if she is really his older sister. However, Taka reminds him that they have been living together since then, and he doesn't need to call her older sister anymore. Taka is surprised that she can cook, and he notices that his mother and sister aren't around to give them some space. While the two are washing the dishes, Tampo and the other girls are watching them secretly while hiding. It is then revealed that Medusa and the KMM gang are all secretly staying in Aya's room, as they don't have any place to go. Tampo throws a tantrum, saying that they are just hiding after they lost the battle. Medusa tells them that they are free to leave if they want, but getting found by Kiana is the last thing that she wants. She reminds them that they shouldn't do anything careless now that they do not have the upper hand. Tampo continues to spy around in the kitchen to kidnap Taka, but can't seem to find the right moment, especially 6 hours earlier. She and the other girls try to corner Taka behind Medusa's back, but they find Aya staying with him until the next morning without sleeping a wink. With this, Tampo's plan is sabotaged. While reading the books Aya gave him for his training, Taka realizes that the witch never intended to teach him how to fight, and plans to always take care of him because fighting is dangerous. Realizing that he will be useless if this continues, he requests that they put studying aside and start practicing fighting. However, Aya declines and tells him that with his grades, they won't be able to go to the same college. Just then, it starts to rain, and the two get out to collect the laundry. When they enter the house, they see that Komatsu, Kiana, and Kasumi are all back from shopping. Aya helps the three with their bags, and she tells Taka to dry himself in the bathroom so he won't get sick. As he's drying his hair, he notices that the light inside the bathroom is on. He opens the door and finds Mei and Kotetsu coming out of the bath. Shocked, they immediately captured him, surprising the girls outside. Kiana swiftly knocks out Komatsu and Kasumi, telling her daughter to help her capture the lackeys of Medusa. However, Aya comes in her way, apologizing as she can't let her mother have the tower witches. Dumbfounded, Kiana believes that Aya is hiding something important from her and that she is willing to defy her. The chairwoman urges Taka to tell her daughter to move, as she'll listen to him. However, instead of listening to her, he orders Aya to protect the tower witches, as he believes in what she is trying to do. Aya then merges with Medusa to boost her power. As Medusa bites into Aya, Taka starts to lose consciousness. While in a dreamlike state, he watches how the standoff between Aya and Medusa ended. The scene shifts to the infirmary, where he is asleep, and Aya suggests forming an alliance with Medusa to gain the power to protect him in exchange for hiding Medusa and her girls from Kiana. The workshop witch then shows the apple of discord to Medusa, which magically merges the powers of two witches. Medusa is shocked, as she has no qualms about stooping low for Taka, and she agrees to become one with Aya. In the present, Aya is fully combined with Medusa. Kiana finally understands everything, and realizes that Medusa isn't after the White Princess, but is seeking a successor, and has chosen her daughter. Everyone is shocked by this ridiculous deduction, which suits her nickname, the Confused Detective. She then starts to fight her own daughter, trying to snap her back to reality. Aya turns Kiana into a stone, but the mother easily breaks out of the curse. She then reminds her daughter that Evermillion hates impurity, and she might be cut off from her magical power because she decides to join Medusa. Wanting to help her, Taka tries to harness his magical power and trade places with Aya, getting punched in the face by Kiana in the process. When he wakes up, he finds himself in a prison cell with Aya. She informs him that they are in the punishment room after they were defeated by her mother. She adds that Medusa is being interrogated at the moment, so their secret must be out by now. Seeing Taka confused, she explains that now that one of his seals is broken, Kiana will surely do something to him, as he is considered dangerous. She teamed up with Medusa in hopes of preventing her mother from hurting him, but now that plan is foiled. She now hopes to defeat her with Taka's power, believing that she will agree to let him live if they succeed. The boy suggests leaving the town and hiding, but she doesn't agree as it will be dangerous for him, as a lot of witches want his power. She promises that they will fight through this together and go to school tomorrow. Meanwhile, while playing a board game with Chrono, Kiana complains about the Rothenburg workshop witches extraditing Medusa and placing her under their jurisdiction. She tries to find the silver lining in her situation, stating that at least she'll now have her peace. However, a part of the school building explodes, revealing Aya and Taka. The witch prepares to fight her mother, but Kiana refuses and berates the two for destroying the school building. While on their way home, Taka tells Aya that her mother seems clueless yet about the seal. Back in past, Kiana talked to two young workshop witches, Hozuki and Tuko, as she wanted to ask them a favor about Aya. The next day, the trio was running down the hallway and was late for their class. Surprisingly, the young Aya had no clue how to act in class or with other people. Fortunately, Hozuki and Hio were patient and guided her on how to navigate her school life. Over time, the students became fascinated by how beautiful and intelligent Aya was, and they started to worship her as their model student, calling her their princess. In the library, Hozuki reminded Aya that interacting with people was important, so she could have friends. However, to her frustration, the girl just continued reading her book. When they checked their class standing, several upperclassmen blocked their path and dragged them to the rooftop. As they had recently become so popular, the leader wanted to give them a little reminder to keep things under control. She then grabbed Aya's hair and tried to cut it, but the witch used her magic and raised their body temperature, making them faint. On their way home, she stood outside Togetsu Boys' school, seemingly looking for someone. The two girls were confused by her actions, but they still stayed with her until dusk. For the next few months, the girls continued to bond with each other and spent their school days together. On some days, the two girls went with her to look for a certain boy in different schools. The seasons changed, and finally it was spring, and they were in their second year of middle school. They stood outside their school watching some cherry blossoms when finally, Aya found the boy she was looking for, Taka. However, he seemed clueless about her and walked past her with his sister. In the present, Aya is sleeping with Taka. When the boy wakes up, he tells her that he had a strange dream about her and smiles. Meanwhile, Kasumi laments having a headache and a confused memory about what happened yesterday. When she reaches their kitchen, she is surprised when she sees the quintet in their kitchen and being accommodated by her mother. Later, she goes up to call her brother for breakfast, but is almost traumatized when she sees Taka and Aya in bed, while the latter is dressed up as a nurse. Taka tries to explain that they're not doing anything wrong and that Aya just wants to conduct a checkup on him. However, Kasumi still berates him. At the school, Taka and Aya deal with a gang of students in onesie costumes. They trash the whole school as a declaration of rebellion against the leadership of Taka. Just then, a girl named Rinon shows up before him and gives him a letter of challenge for a duel. She declares that he should go to the school gym alone for her to stop the revolt. Tuko reveals that she saw the former school council president with Rinon last night. She overheard that the former president lied that Taka assaulted her and took embarrassing photos of it to get her position as the president of the student council. In the school gym, Aya briefs them about Rinon, saying that she is the top delinquent at Togetsu High, known as the Bear Killer. She was suspended from school for causing trouble, so a lot of people didn't know her. Taka is worried that Kiana will scold him for the revolt, but they discover later on that Chrono will act as the chairwoman while Kiana is away on business. With this, the two decide to take on Rinon's challenge and plan a way to defeat the delinquent. Later, Taka arrives at the school's gym and is surprised that they have an audience. He tries to take her out of it, but the girl is determined to take revenge for her friend. Rinon starts to attack and beats the boy, forcing him to fight back. He remembers Aya's reminder that he must not use his power. She also told him that Rinon's final attack would be a straight punch. The delinquent punches fast, so he needs to dodge fast as well. In the gym, Taka uses a small amount of his magic and is able to overpower Rinon. He attempts to hit her but hesitates and ultimately decides that he can't hurt a girl. Just then, the quintet arrives, and Rinon gets angry as she believes Taka set her up. However, Aya plans it all and teaches her a lesson for messing with Taka. As the witches are all in their robes, the students can't see them and believe that Taka won the duel. and they honor his victory. Later, it is revealed that Aya manipulated the deposed president from the start just to improve Taka's popularity at school and gain the students' respect. Upon discovering this, Renown terrorizes her friend for deceiving her. However, this helped Taka's image, and he became the hero who defeated the bear killer. On a rooftop, Aya decides to teach Taka about offensive magic, trying to make him practice how to control his magic and produce a fire. However, he can't concentrate as she's dangerously close to him. He creates some distance between them and tells her that she needs to slow down. Despite this, the witch summons a fire monster, and she urges him to fight it to the best of his ability so she can gauge his power. The monster breathes fire at Taka, and he barely dodges it. Aya tells him to call his familiar and fight head-on. However, before he can even act, the monster attacks again, and it injures him. Worried about his safety, Aya stops the fight and tells him that they will continue the training tomorrow. However, he refuses, saying that he wants to learn to control his power immediately. Hearing his determination, she throws him off the building and tells him to concentrate on calling his family. In a panic, he ends up summoning a giant image of Aya in a nurse outfit that catches the two of them before punching a nearby building. Flustered, he tries to explain why Aya is the image of his familiar, but he suddenly loses consciousness. Settling them on a roof, Aya remembers the dreams she had before about Taka, even before meeting him. In her dream, Taka tells her that everything they lost is in the school, so she needs to find them. She promises that she'll find him and sit next to him, going to school together. At present, Aya has finally found Taka, but she still doesn't remember the memories that she lost. Looking at the boy beside her, she nonchalantly reminds him that he needs to study as they have upcoming exams. Meanwhile, Kiana is with Renown in an unknown place. As they are looking at the mysterious magic on the wall, the young witch reports that some witch calling herself a messenger of the tower showed up and said that she had taken everyone hostage in a town. The next day, Kiana meets up with another witch named Weekend. She explains that what Kiana discovered last night was a magical bomb that could wipe out the whole city. It was made with a blood contract, and the one who created it can detonate the bomb. Discovering this, the chairwoman negotiates with Weekend to safely detonate the bomb, saying that she knows that the evil witch wants Taka. Weekend confirms this, but admits that she also wants to test the ability of the leader of the workshop witches to protect the city against any threat. Just then, Weekend detonates the magical bomb, exploding the whole city. Exhausted from limiting the damage of the explosion, Kiana falls to her knees and warns the evil witch that her superiors will punish her for disturbing the balance. However, Weekend isn't threatened, as she plans to obtain the White Princess by then, revealing that Medusa and Chrono's attacks are all orchestrated by her. She tells the chairwoman that rendering her powerless is her goal, and orders her subordinates to take the workshop witch's leader captive. Weekend tells her that it will take a week for her power to come back, and it is enough time for her to steal the White Princess. Meanwhile, Aya brings Taka to an underground base of the workshop witness. There, he meets his sister along with other workshop witches like Rhinon, Natsu, and Atori. Taka asks what caused the explosion, but instead of answering, Natsu draws a gun and fires at him. The injury is transferred to Aya, but she manages to protect him until she collapses from her wounds. Rendering Kasumi unconscious as well, Renown tells him that he must come with them peacefully. Later, she brings him and the unconscious Aya to a dungeon to hide them. Aya regains her consciousness and guesses that they must have been locked inside the cell because her mother's barrier protection is gone, and she must have been defeated. Just then, a magical puppet created by Weekend finds the two, and she goes to them. She then uses the puppet to blow up a section of the wall, breaks out, and remarks that neither of them has their magic power at the moment. Shocking Taka. Aya and Taka are walking in the dungeon with the exit door in sight. They use the door and are in shock as they see that the town is now a pile of rubble. Natsu tells the others at the emergency HQ that one of the magic circles was rigged by a tower witch, causing explosions all over town. She reports that Kiana is now in enemy hands, while many of their allied witches were also caught up in the explosion. A lot of injured witches are getting medical aid and are resting up. What's worse, without the barrier, they are now witches without magic. Back to our protagonists. Taka looks at the destruction in the town and worries about his mother. However, Aya tells him that she is safe, along with the other citizens. Taka becomes embroiled in guilt, as he feels like the town has been destroyed because people are targeting him. His protector comforts him telling him that she believes in his power to make it all right again. So, Taka calms himself, trusting Aya to bring him to where he needs to go. As they walk the ruins of the town, Aya reports about how the representative of the workshop witches formed a contract with the town to form a barrier ancient years ago, and the rules stipulate that the magic of the witches is absorbed to protect the civilians, explaining why they don't have their powers right now. As they go to a door that takes them underground, Aya continues to report that the civilians are teleported to a safe place. Their mission is to restore the contract with the town, and once that is done, all the buildings will be restored to normal. Taka falls from their path, forcing Aya to catch him in the air, but they hit the ground anyway. Both of them are okay, and they continue their journey. Back at the emergency HQ, a scared workshop witch shows up with stuffed toy bombs all over her body. She tells the others that Weekend's message is for the workshop witches to bring Taka to her in 30 seconds. Meanwhile, Weekend is on the school grounds, surrounded by her witch hostages, who are also wearing stuffed toy bombs. The KMM gang and Kasumi are spying on her from a distance, watching her movements. Back to the protagonists, they are now traveling through a tunnel. There, they are met by one of Weekend's underlings, Gibraltar. She attacks them by creating a giant golem and using it to hit Aya over and over with its fist. Aya dodges the final blow, runs to Gibraltar's face, and punches her with so much force that it breaks the golem armor protecting the witch. She tells Taka that she has great strength even without magic, since her mother trained her to. The protagonists have reached their destination, the workshop's sacred ground, where there is a giant glowing tree at its center. Taka comes to understand that they came here so that he can make a contract with the town. Meanwhile, Natsu, Rino, and the girl strapped to the bomb have met up with Weekend at the school grounds. Weekend is disappointed that they did not bring Taka with them, and tells the good witches that she will blow up all her bomb-rigged hostages in 11 minutes if they don't have the boy then. As they talk, Kasumi and the quintet are listening in. Kasumi theorizes that the real bomb maker is not Weekend, but is someone somewhere within the school. Meanwhile, Aya tells Taka that the moment he makes a contract with the town, his body will get extremely exhausted. Once successful, the contract will only be temporary, but they will have their powers for that short amount of time. As Taka nears the tree, there are only 12 seconds left before the bombs blow on the hostages. Just before the time runs out, Tanpo comes to the school grounds and disarms the bomb on one hostage. Natsu and Rino quickly run to the other hostages and realize they have their powers back. They disable all the bombs in quick succession. The tense moment ends as Rino pins Weekend to the ground. On the sacred ground, Taka just woke up on Aya's lap. She encourages the weakened boy to rest to recover his strength. Elsewhere, Natsu and Rino have brought the smiling Weekend into a magic-proof cell. Despite this, the enemy is still full of confidence. She removes her cape, revealing that she is strapped to a series of grenades. She makes it explode, destroying her cell and making her captors unconscious. Despite being caught up directly in her own explosion, Weekend is still standing. Elsewhere, Taka has felt Rino and Natsu's pain like it's his own. He sees a vision that Weekend is in the emergency HQ, activating all her bombs and making the area explode. Meanwhile, Kasumi has found the masked witch, Nietzsche, in school, and she is ready to face her along with the quintet. Not wanting more witches to get hurt, Taka activates the power within him, making him glow. Aya puts him to sleep, no longer wanting him to strain his body more. As she carries him, she tells herself that the rest is up to her. Aya returns Taka to his shattered bedroom. While he sleeps, Taka sees a vision of the past, when his mother was still a student in high school and was being bullied by most of the students by tripping her while she walked, putting notes behind her, and vandalizing her desk. Kiana was one of the classmates, and she couldn't stand how the woman was being bullied that she beat up all of their classmates. Taka's mother has fallen in love with her ever since. Taka then sees an unremembered memory of his younger self going to the province with Kiana. He then sees the moment when Aya reported to her mother that she has found her prince, and so she wants her mother to put him and her in the same class. Suddenly, Mikage surprises Taka by bringing him to a rooftop, where everything in view looks like something that came out of a lucid dream. The teacher tells the young man that he saw Kiana's memories through their connections as contractors to the town. He reports that they are in a world dreamt up by the town, and that he is here because of his new connection to the town. Mikage brings him to what looks like outer space, and each star is a non-magic civilian since they were brought here after the disaster. Once the town is restored, so will they be in the real world. Mikage reveals that he uses memory-erasing magic, and his power will erase people's memories of the dream world. Meanwhile, a witch named Atori is with Aya for help. Atori sees that she can't stop Aya from finding Weekend on her own, so she gives her her sword to help. Aya flies with her broom, carrying the sword with her. She goes to the church within the city and enters it. Weekend is inside, impressed that she has found her hideout. Aya attacks, only to be met with a bomb explosion. The enemy reveals that the entire church is rigged with stuffed toy bombs. Back in the dream world, Mikage continues to tell Taka that it was he who erased his memories, along with the princess. This upsets Taka so much that he shouts at the teacher for what he's done. However, a chunk of their platform explodes, cutting short their conversation. It turns out that one of Weekend's masked minions has invaded their dream space. Back at the church, Aya keeps dodging every explosion that comes her way. As she goes near Weekend, the villain makes her explode. Despite this, the princess is still able to get near her and point her sword at her. Weekend is impressed, now realizing that her opponent had focused all her magic to shield herself from explosions. Just as Aya moves for a killing stroke, the villain lets herself explode and then brings the ceiling down on top of the princess. Aya still manages to protect herself with an armor made of flame. As their fight goes on, Aya eventually exhausts her magic, giving the self-recovering Weekend to gain the upper hand as she grabs onto the princess's neck. This turns out to be Aya's ruse, as she still has flames to burn the villain. It turns out that the princess absorbed some of Taka's power just before the battle, giving her slightly more than usual. Thinking she has won the battle, Aya turns her back on Weekend. This turns out to be a mistake, as Weekend bombs her again. The villain then summons her giant monsters, now realizing that she shouldn't have underestimated the princess. In the dream world, the enemy keeps using a barrage of attacks to overpower Mikage's barrier protecting him and Taka. The teacher touches the young man's forehead so that he can bring him back to reality. Taka wakes up back in his room. He realizes that Aya is gone, and he wants Atori to tell him where she went. However, Atori doesn't answer him and forces him to rest. Atori's puppet then rings like a telephone. She answers, and it is Mikage talking through the puppet to tell her that he is at the dream civilian evacuation site, and that he has already defeated the masked attacker. He reports that he learned that the masked attacker planted a bomb in the dimension. Taka overhears the conversation and begs Atori to tell him where Aya is. Back at the church, the defeated Aya has figured out that Weekend has the same recovery powers as her. Weekend tells her that she is powerful, despite not having a lot of magic, because she has spent a year planting bombs in the church and the magic circle that blew up the town, making herself focus only on recovery while in battle. She reveals that her magic has now run dry, with her summoned creatures being her last legs. She moves her hand, activating the creatures to explode. Taka and Atori can see the explosion while they are up on their flying broom, so our protagonist hurries to the spot. He finds Aya unconscious in the rubble of the church and goes to her. The princess opens her eyes to see her prince. Taka tells her to use his power since there is a bomb in the world where the civilians are being kept, only to fall asleep due to him still being weak and recovering. Weekend's masked minion tries to attack them, but Aya transforms into her flame princess form, immediately defeating the attacker and pinning Weekend to the ground. However, Weekend presses the detonator, activating the bomb in the dream world. Weekend has just detonated the bomb, exploding the dream world evacuation site along with its inhabitants. Taka sees the vision of the explosion and feels the pain of lives vanishing. He powers himself up, wanting to revive the people. However, he fails due to his body being too weak. Evermillion appears before him. She tells him that she is willing to bring back all the lives taken, as well as restore the town, as long as the trade-off is his life. Taka thinks about how losing his life also means Aya will lose hers. Without any options, he tells her he will do it, restoring the town to its former glory in an instant. Taka tells Aya about the deal and apologizes for involving her life too. The princess embraces him, telling him it's okay. She calls forth Evermillion's name and tells her to take her life instead. Aya suddenly gets out of her flaming princess form and falls to her death. Just as Taka tries to go to her, Weekend stabs him from behind with a knife. Taka overpowers her, steals the knife and pins her to the ground, only to reveal that he didn't stab her. He tells the villain that he will never give up, no matter how many times she throws a bomb at him. He suddenly loses strength that Weekend gets away from the pin. She tells her minion to treat his wounds since, while she fails now, she only needs to repeat her plan. As the two villains exit the church, Atori gets to see them leave while in hiding. So Atori sees the villains leave as she enters the church to check up on Taka and Aya. Meanwhile, every workshop witch that has been dead or wounded so far has been revived to full health. Back at the church, Taka is still holding his princess's body as Mikage calls through Atori's puppet that he is all right in the dream world. He finds that all the stars have already returned to the real world as if nothing had happened. Despite the good news, Taka is crying while Aya is in his arms. Mikage wants to try something and tells Atori to draw a magic circle on the floor with Aya at its center. Mikage tells Taka to make a small cut on his fingertip and recite an incantation. The young man gets embarrassed, as the teacher also tells him to kiss Aya at the end. Mikage continues to explain that he theorizes that the princess didn't die for taking Taka's place, but for breaking her contract with Taka. So the young man needs to restore the contract with a kiss. He nears his head towards the princess and aims to kiss her lips, only to kiss her forehead instead. Since the girl is not waking up, Mikage tells him to try again. Taka goes for the lips again, but finds it too difficult to go through with it. Mikage compels him and forces him to kiss her on the lips. However, they find that the sleeping beauty is already breathing. Taka then wakes up in his bedroom. He suddenly remembers Aya, only for the girl to come visit his room in full health. As they go to school together, Aya assures the man that she's all right and thinks she needs some time until her magic recovers. They look at how peaceful the town looks, and they want to spend that peace together. Their intimate moment gets interrupted as KMM gang ambushes them. They attack, only for Aya to grip their heads into submission. Taka sighs, thinking that nothing will ever change, and tries to attack them,